Hi, thank you for joining us today. Today we're going to be speaking about cultivating self-love. First thing we want to do is give a brief introduction of the topic before we get into our introductions of ourselves. Today we're going to focus on a wonderful book by a wonderful author called Finding Your Inner Warrior. In this book, or in what we're going to speak about today, we're going to talk about going from victim to survivor to warrior, and really focus on the importance of your mindset and how your mindset impacts your inner warrior and cultivating self-love.
Absolutely. So I'm Claire Horner. I'm a therapist here in Atlanta, and I'm going to let the other two introduce themselves real quick, and then we'll dive in a little bit further into Dr. Nora Fahlberg and how she came to write this book, and then we'll get into cultivating self-love. And if you're like most of us, that is a hard topic. It's like, do what now? You want me to what? Isn't that selfish? We have a lot of stuff that goes on. So again, I'm Claire Horner with ATL Shrink, and I'm a sexual trauma specialist and relationship translator, relationship expert here in Atlanta. And I've been practicing for 17 years and really enjoy the work that I do.
Awesome.
SaDohl?
My name is SaDohl Jones. I am a therapist here in the Atlanta area as well with the Atlanta Mental Health and Wellness Center. I'm a trauma specialist, and I focus on childhood trauma, sexual trauma, and women. And I've been practicing for about 15 years in Atlanta.
And I'm Nora, and I'm an author, an educator, and an advocate for women who've been through too many MeToo experiences or assault and all the other things that happen.
So great. I'm so glad you're here,
And I'm
Nora.
excited to share. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I met Nora, it's probably been 2 months now, I think. And really, I was standing with a friend, Marilyn Perlman, and we were talking, and she was standing with a book in her hand. And I scanned the cover, and I was like, what is that you have there? And she said, oh, you need to know about this. And so she started telling me about the book. And this is the book here, Finding Your Inner Warrior, a guide for the hesitant woman in the wake of MeToo. And so we got to talking, and then the three of us talked over Zoom a couple weeks later. And so I've just enjoyed getting to know her and reading the book. And we just thought that it was, as SaDohl and I are starting some work in some online series on sexual trauma and supportive talks and that kind of thing. We just thought it'd be a good idea to bring her on and talk about this. And we just thought that the topic of self-love is such a tough one. So we thought we'd dive into that today.
Absolutely.
So we want to also say that this is dedicated to the reset community. And SaDohl wants to tell you some about what that is.
Absolutely. So as Claire stated, we have been working together for just a little bit over a year on what we call Reset. And it is a way to encourage and support people who need to reset their life after sexual trauma. So our Reset community really does focus on healing from sexual trauma through online and in-person different events, resources, and support. So whether that means we used to do a support group, but of course now with everything going on and there being the need for distance, we have paused our support group meeting face-to-face, and we've now brought that online. So what we do now is we do events like this, where we speak to different authors or different people who have impacted or can impact some of our clients in our groups. And we also have other resources and different things like that we both post on our socials to encourage and provide support from a distance for those who are recovering from sexual trauma.
There's so much that goes into healing, and whether it was one event or whether it was
Mhm.
events over the course of years as a child. It may have been events that happened before you even had language, and
Mhm.
just have either body memories or things that go on physically, or impressions that you have. And all the way to having, kind of like Nora, you talk about, the horrific list of experiences of, verbal and physical boundary violations, and just
Mhm.
ideas that are, we're trying to work towards a consent culture, but it has not been that, you know.
Mhm.
So, I appreciate your work in this. But yeah, reset's been great. We have a reading room that we've been doing in person for the past year, actually, now that
Mhm.
it's May.
Yep.
And a reading room is basically just a place where people take those books off the shelf that have been sitting there,
Mhm.
and bring it, and we read silently together, have a meditation, and then talk about our resources. And so
Mhm.
we hope to be able to do that in some sort of fashion online.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I wanted to throw in here too, we just started a meetup group for Reset. And during the time, this is right now, as we're talking, we're still in quarantine for COVID-19, and states are in various levels of restarting their um, journey back to life. But it's going to take us a while, I believe. So
Mhm.
so let's talk to Dr. Nora Fahlberg. So thanks again for being here. You've kind of been around the world in terms of your experience in, chiropractic, body work, all manner of body work, and acupuncture, teaching in the health sciences, and also working in the film industry, as well as, so you've had so many experiences. And one of the things you talk about is how over that time you heard so many stories from clients and patients, probably students even, and friends. And as we came into 2018 with the Me Too movement, you started talking more to people, right?
Mhm. They started sharing more. It became okay to share. Before that, we were all so reluctant. I remember as a teenager, these things would happen, and we talk about them a little bit, but not a lot. Through
Mhm.
my years in practice, chiropractic is hardly doesn't seem relevant, but when you put your hands on people and you ease their pain, they tell you everything. And so they would tell me their stories, heartbreaking stories. And I'd suggest counseling, but they'd say, no, I just want to tell you, Dr. Nora. So I would listen. And an unbelievable number of stories, and so many commonalities, and similar struggles. And it was overwhelming for a very long time.
Yeah,
But
from what you said, you knew that sharing with one another was powerful.
mhm,
You knew that supporting one another was powerful. Information was powerful. But what struck me was when you said, that as much good as that can do, that there was a gap,
mhm,
and that gap was that we were going to basically wait on people to act right, so to speak, or to do the right thing,
Mhm.
or for consent culture to catch up.
mhm.
And that's just not realistic.
It didn't work for me. For years I thought that someone would step in and help me. Someone else would say something. Someone would stand up. And it never happened. No one ever came to save me. But we're trained to wait. I mean, we're all, fairy tales waiting for the prince to come and save us. And it just doesn't work that way. And girls aren't socialized to speak up. We're socialized to be quiet.
Mhm.
We're not socialized to fight back. we're socialized to, just give them the benefit of the doubt. It's probably okay. So we have no tools to do this. And that's the problem with, the consent and all that is there are a great many number of men who are our allies and who would never dream of doing anything like this. But you have that percentage of men, and there are women too, who are creeps and perpetrators, and they're not going to change anything. So to me, it just became, I had two choices. Either I could just continue to put up with it, or I could figure out how to fight back. And after a couple of horrific experiences, I decided that I was worthy of being defended, even if I had to do it myself. And that was when I decided that I would figure out how. And I started from zero because I was as passive as you can get. So it was a very interesting journey. And now
I love that idea. I love that idea of giving people permission to defend themselves. And I think when we talk about how women and girls are socialized, that's really important, because what is very true is that the idea is that you don't want to make others feel bad. You don't want to accuse someone of something. You don't want to jump to conclusions. But what that really does is it teaches women to not trust their instinct and not trust themselves, and to doubt what they're feeling and defer to someone else's perception of what's actually happening within their own space.
Exactly.
And I think that's where the danger comes in with, well, I didn't say anything, or I thought I said something, or maybe they didn't hear me, or maybe they didn't understand that that's what I meant, as opposed to I felt it, I said it, they didn't listen.
Exactly. And then should we be lucky enough to be one of the small percentage of cases that actually make it into court, these things come back to haunt us. She didn't say no, or she didn't say anything, or she didn't tell anyone, or that comes back to haunt us. But again, we've been socialized to be that way. And I personally have had enough of it. And so I would say, not just say it's okay for women to defend themselves. Now I want to encourage them. I want to encourage them to have this transformation and take this power for ourselves. Because I believe that if more of us actually start speaking up and standing up, it's going to be better for all of us.
Absolutely. And it'd just be easier to, to have that collective voice, and not a collective voice of aggression, but of assertiveness. And the assertiveness to me is always the win-win situation. It's, I'm not going to break you down for something you said to me, but I am going to reflect it back to you. Or I'm going to say, that's not okay, or move back, or, whatever it is in the given moment. So, go ahead.
And I'm sure that you've both had this experience when you talk to survivors, because I've found this in my private coaching, because I've been coaching the young women around me and friends for couple of decades on this now. They all say the same thing. Well, they even feel aggressive if they're just saying no. So there's a lot to counteract.
Exactly. So I want to take one quick step back. I want to just say about the book that it's lessons and a guide. Like it's how to work from the inside to clean up some of the things, the clean up the messages we got, shift those messages, how to move into a place where we're living from a assertive place. We don't have to, fight our way with aggression through the world, but we do want to move through with I am valued as a human, and so are you. And that we can all kind of move through together. So I want to point out, this book is only 59 pages, and it is so powerful and practical. And I know that you have an emphasis on kind of getting your voice in there a little bit. I know you're kind of pushed to maybe speak up a little bit more than you even wanted to, to kind of give a framework for where you were coming from with it. But I just wanted to point that out. It is literally 59 pages, but really, really strong really strong stuff. So I wanted to just kind of, we'll switch back to just kind of talking about victim, survivor, and warrior. And let's talk about, I'll read a quote in a second, but let's talk about that. So, you know, you call us, you've kind of moved us to calling ourselves warriors. And I think there's a need for first owning victim because it was true. But it's a bridge, it's a pass through. And in my mind, there's a pass through to kind of understand the victimhood and to recognize, you know, something that was done to us, stolen from us, you know, those types of things, kind of the taking of power. But then to me, we move into survivor, and that takes on its own space. But I still think that's a pass through. I still think we don't want to necessarily sit in the role of survivor forever, because it creates an identity that almost, I'm not going to say it honors the perpetrators, but it says they're still in my sphere all the time.
Still gives them power.
Yeah. So to me, moving to warrior is, it's not being in a state of battle all the time. It's just being aware of ourselves. And maybe, and that's where I wanted to, you know, let you kind of elaborate on the warrior aspect.
You know, thank you for saying all of that. I'm glad that, you know, this resonates with you. You know, really, we only got the survivor option not so very long ago. And yeah, it seems to me a resting point. And, you know, I got caught there for a very long time. And then, but when I transformed in the warrior, you know, of course it doesn't mean I'm battling all the time. I don't have a chip on my shoulder. I'm not looking to fight, but it means I have that in readiness. I have that inner fighting spirit. And I know that I have it in me that when I need it, that I can do it. So it's a readiness. And then it's also a power. I take back my power from all of those experiences. It was them. It wasn't me. And shame on them. You know, and as a warrior, you know, I can say that, you know, shame on you. That was you. And it's so liberating to be in that space.
I think it would be, it's also important for people who are in that space of survivor, because I think a lot of times we know how to get from the victim to the survivor, or we talk a lot about, I won't say we know how to get there so much, but we talk a lot about how to move from victim to survivor. And that's where you want to be, right? Like that's typically what you hear. We don't necessarily hear as much of the next step of being a warrior and what that looks like, and why it's important to move from the survivor space to the warrior space. I think that's probably the link. I think that people who are in that survivor space, because I would imagine people are survivors and they wear that survivor badge with honor. I am surviving now. I am not, you know, I'm surviving and thriving. I am no longer a victim. I'm taking back, feeling that they've taken back their power. And so the concept of going to the next step of becoming a warrior may not necessarily click immediately. And so I like the fact that you make those connections.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that. And there's nothing wrong with being in the survivor stage. And of course, in the victim point, we have to honor that. We have to understand that and have that grieving process or whatever we need to go through. And the survivor is a great step in the right direction. And I don't know that I ever heard of the warrior thing anywhere. I thought it, you know, it's just kind of what happened to me. It was my life journey, because I found that I really needed to go to that place to feel like I had my autonomy again.
And
so a warrior is empowered. A warrior is autonomous.
Self-love.
A warrior is assertive and self-loved.
And ready. That's
and ready.
It's a readiness. Yeah.
Readiness. Yeah.
It's knowing that you can, because we think that we can't defend ourselves. So now we're at the mindset. It's knowing that you can.
Yes.
You can defend yourself. Maybe not
capable.
perfectly every time, maybe not all the time. It takes a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
practice. But it's about, yes, it's the readiness and being, knowing that you can, knowing that you have that strength, knowing that you're worth defending.
I am capable. I can do this. I am
Mm-hmm.
worthy and valuable enough as a human being to
Yes.
do this.
Yeah.
And I love myself. And I love myself enough that I'm not going to take that. I am not going to put up with that anymore.
Right.
So to me, that's the warrior thing.
So we decided to pull out, this idea of self-love, because I think it can be so difficult to figure out, like, okay, well, if that's the last thing on my mind and the last thing I was taught to do, where do I begin with that? And so this is from chapter 5, which is Cultivating Self-Love and Esteem. And the importance of the mindset. I want to pull this line out, which it says, the things that we tell ourselves about ourselves create our self-image, and our self-image dictates what we can and can't do. So this self-image, yes, it is absolutely impacted by the people around us, for sure. And we'll get into that some more. But as we look at our self-image, so much of it is we can repair. But we also have to give ourselves permission and authority to do that. So as we get into looking at, these 5 ways, there's many more. There's many more that you list in here. We just grabbed a few. But as we get into that, what does self-love, let's the 3 of us kind of brainstorm and talk about, what does self-love look like? Like, to me, my clients hear me say this all the time. What does it look like at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday? What does the day-to-day person who loves themselves, where's that coming from? How do they make decisions, their day-to-day decisions? What are things what comes to mind for y'all when I say that?
SaDohl?
To be completely honest, I was going to say Nora.
I'm happy to start.
Because that's my big question for you, and coming up with these ways, and even really reading this book. It's like, I wondered for you, what did that look like for you, or what do you feel like that looks like?
What it feels like to me is a freedom. I don't have that inner dialogue hounding me all the time. That, I screwed up this, or I'm not good enough for this, or da 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 da. It's gone. That voice is gone. And when if it says something mean, I'm like, I'm awesome. I'm going to figure this out. So I have that immediate response where I'm watching my thoughts, and because of that, I'm liberated from so much pain that so many of us carry around all the time. So I'm happier. I'm freer. I'm stronger. And for me, that translates into having more energy to give to and help other people. So that's what self-love is to me. Freedom.
I would take freedom and say freedom to act from my needs and desires. So like, if I'm making breakfast, for instance, and I'm looking in the refrigerator, I'm looking around the kitchen, how do I listen to my body? Is my body important, first of all? Or am I just going by, that expert yesterday said you're supposed to be eating these things, and so I must have to eat those things, or I'm not going to be, whatever, fill in the blank, good. And so coming from a place of knowing what your body might want and need, knowing what sounds good. Like this morning, I was like, tea or coffee or water. Being able to make those choices and not have that critic that you're talking about, that voice. Somewhere in the chapter, somebody called it something.
Yeah, it's been, the inner dialogue has been called a lot. The inner critic, the evil DJ. Eckhart Tolle calls it the thinker.
That's
So,
accurate.
whatever we call it, it's usually, just hounding
Mhm.
us all the time. There's a lot of recrimination.
Yeah.
So yeah, with the self-love, it's kind of like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And I'm just going to enjoy it. Or I'm going to be good today. And, either way, it's okay.
The enjoyment is okay.
Hmm.
I think for me, I think of confidence, like having the confidence to ...
Mm.
So having the confidence to trust my gut, having the confidence to listen to my body, having the confidence to honor my feeling and be genuine in my expression. So self-love is really just having the confidence to do the thing that's needed for me,
That's
whatever that is.
That's a really good point. And that's why I start with self-love, because it's almost like we're building a pyramid of life skills, similar to, Maslow's hierarchy of, but, at the base is self-love, because we kind of need that to go on, to go to the confidence at the next level, and then the assertiveness, and up to the warrior at the top. So, it's great that you say that, because self-love has a great deal of influence on our self-confidence as well.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said at the start of this chapter, the mindset translates into a thought, like a personal thought of, I am good enough.
Mhm.
I am good enough to decide what I'm going to eat today. I am good enough to decide what my schedule is today. I am good enough to decide for myself. And we have family members and friends and bosses and, the grocery store clerk and, all these structures that help inform that. But I get to take all of that data in and decide how I want to do it from who I am as a person. I'm allowed to show up in the ways that I want to show up.
Exactly.
So let's get into these.
All right.
So first one is getting curious and self-awareness.
Well, self-awareness is the key. You have to be actually paying attention to that voice in your head. I mean, we're so used to it. We just think it's always been there and it's correct. So we have to start monitoring it. So that's part of the self-awareness. And the self-awareness can be other things, where is this coming from? Who told me these things? Where did I get this? Who reinforces it? So we have to begin with that self-awareness where we're willing to honestly take a look at our thoughts and assess them.
And I think one of the beginning places, I tell people all the time, if saying I am good enough is too much, like if that just stirs up more conflict in our head, then you can go to, I want to believe that I am good enough. Or I want to believe that I am good enough. So we can start wherever we are.
Wherever we are.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to say the steps too. I think like having that understanding that everyone's not going to automatically be where they're saying, I am enough. But there's nothing wrong with, it would be nice to feel like I am enough.
I like that one.
Yeah,
exactly.
so I like that.
When I would suggest to people that I know, I mean, amazing, intelligent, awesome, successful, well-educated women that, you could say, I love myself. And they say, I can't say that. And that's how bad it is out there. So, we can't say that. So we can't say a lot of these things. So yeah, we have to work on neutralizing the bad. And sometimes that's in baby steps. So it could be, I'm learning to love myself. I'm working on getting better. All right. And I am getting better. So you can make it more real for you.
Yeah. And those stages, really match yourself where you are in order to, for me, it's gaining momentum in a different direction. And, that 3 steps forward, 2 steps back is real.
It is.
But to me, you still gain one. And then you do 3 steps, 2 steps back, 3 steps, 2 steps back, and you're gaining momentum more and more.
I'm smiling because that reminds me of a saying I read somewhere, that an optimist sees the 3 steps forward, 2 steps back in life as the cha-cha.
That's
The
good.
self-love cha-cha.
The self-love cha-cha. We're going to do this dance.
And you know, those back steps, they're going to come. It's inevitable. You know, we're all going
It's a
to have
part of
them.
it.
So yeah, you be gentle with yourself, and the stages and the steps are perfect.
So
Yeah.
as we get curious and work on this self-awareness, you talk about how we need to, I don't think you said it like this, but like who and what impacts how you feel about yourself.
Yes.
So taking a look around, looking at the people in your life, who and what impacts how you feel about yourself? Who impacts you to feel negative about yourself? Who and what activities, even what
Social
leads you to
media.
feel positive about yourself? Yeah. So maybe list some and maybe kind of go into some of that. How do you look around at your life?
You know, it's an assessment, and you know, we often have to begin with our family, because as you know, our self-esteem is often pretty much set around 7 years old. So it's our family to a large extent who gave us those ideas about ourselves. You know, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, or whatever, you know, I'm not worthy of being loved. You know, and then it becomes our friends. And some of them are good influences who lift us up and help us feel better, and others maybe not so much. And then that continues through our lives. Then we take in the media, you know, starting with fairy tales and romantic novels where the woman is helpless, and, you know, or whatever. And we create so many sources for these things. And so we have to take a really hard look at what kind of influences we have. You know, are you reading magazines that make you feel bad about yourself because they have images of women who are impossibly beautiful in a very narrow way? You know, do you have friends that bring you down? So it's a very hard look at who's reinforcing the negative and who's helping you with the positive.
And self-awareness doesn't mean you have to move into the action phase. It's really just kind of the taking an inventory.
Yeah.
So the next one is focus on your positive qualities. And so how do we do that?
I often encourage my clients and friends to make lists. You know, we have this idea that we're mostly our limitations and our shortcomings. You know, we talk about, I'm bad at this, I'm not good at that. You know, well, it's okay, write those down. And now actually take a second and write down what you're good at. And if you have trouble with that, ask someone who loves you, you know, what do you think are my positive qualities? Or what do you like about me? So you can write those down so you can actually look at them. I'm big about writing because somehow writing makes it real. So I have people create a lot of charts, you know, the one thing on the left hand and the other on the right, and so you can see. So we have to become more accustomed to actually thinking about our positive qualities. Women especially are socialized to be self-deprecating. So we don't even take compliments. Oh, you look great today. You know, well, I don't know. So we don't see those. Whereas men are great about that. You know, they're like focused on their positive qualities for the most part. There are exceptions, of course. So this is part of the self-discovery, where you actually sit down and you're honest with yourself about what you're good at and what's positive about you. A little bit of practice.
It does take a lot of practice. I think this one for me anyway stood out because I think a lot of times the negative reel, I call it the reel that we have in our head. So it's the thing that plays over and over and over again. And typically, like you just said, that reel is very negative. So it's highlighting all of the bad things I've ever done or all of the bad things that have ever been done to me. And it's hard to, when that reel is playing like a movie, it's hard to stop it and replace those snapshots with what's actually true about who you are.
It is.
And so that idea that if you're not able to correct the reel yourself, creating that list of who can I contact that will negate this negative reel that I'm continuing to play in my head, or that continues to play in my head. How do I stop that and put in some positives or put in some facts, because typically the real isn't factual. And so stopping it and changing it and making it a fact. What's a fact in that area? If I were to ask X, Y, and Z. And so a second part of what we talked about was, identifying the person or spending time with people who really love you and genuinely love you and care about you. Sometimes that is difficult for people to do. Mm-hmm. And so I'd like for you to talk a little bit about, one, doing that, but also identifying those people, what that actually looks like.
This is very much a feeling thing. We know who the people that when we're around them, we feel better and we leave feeling better. Maybe we feel consoled or uplifted or motivated. And we also know those people that when we're with them, we feel our energy draining away and we feel like, maybe we're not doing enough to help. And then when we leave them, we feel depleted or sad. So this is another hard look at who makes you feel good. Those are the positive people, and your friends who really like you, your friends and family who really love you. So it's kind of taking a look at those and then starting to redistribute your time so there's less time with the people who drain you and make you feel bad. Now for me, the people who like and love me are mostly my friends, not so much in the family. And this is not an uncommon experience. So I had to look for new family, people who would actually support me and love me and say nice things to me. And this becomes part of the journey where you evaluate the people in your life, who's helping you or at least walking with you, and who's getting in your way.
I think that's really important. Go ahead, Claire.
Looking at kind of the stages of how do we get there, if you were to ask a friend of yours, what are 2 things that you think I'm good at? Mm-hmm. You don't have to even necessarily believe what they're saying at this stage. Mm-hmm. This is just writing it down, taking an inventory, taking a look at it. The other thing is, I guess self-confident people, I don't know why this example popped in my head, but like a self-confident person would not say, I'm horrible at math and focus on what they're bad at. Mm-hmm. They would probably say, even if they're horrible at math, they would say, I'm really good at writing. And they wouldn't even kind of acknowledge I'm horrible mm-hmm. at math, mm-hmm. even if it's true. Mm-hmm. And so kind of it's the choice of which direction to go. Mm-hmm. And I think that the things that are a lot of our positive qualities are the things that come naturally to us. So we don't tend to highlight them.
Mm-hmm. We may not be aware. We just do them automatically. You're a good listener. You're supportive to your friends. You're loyal. Mm-hmm. You do care about people. It could be I'm good at gardening or I'm good at math. Okay, that's not me. I've got oodles of confidence and I'm happy to say I don't math well. And you know what? I don't care. I have calculators. Right. Mm-hmm. Well, let me focus on what I'm good at. So yes, that's it. It's the little things. And oddly enough, people tend to believe what their friends and family tell them. It feels mm-hmm. objective. So that's why sometimes it's very good to ask the people around you, what would you say my positive qualities are?
What would you say if someone says, I don't have anyone in my life that I can ask mm-hmm. that? I don't feel supported by anyone.
This is so hard and it breaks my heart. And I understand completely. This was me as a child, with just my family. That makes it really hard. Now, we're fortunate with our, especially in this weird time of everybody being in a lot, that we do have the internet and social media and email, and we can reach out to, online groups or support groups, and we can find those groups, hopefully, to find someone who will help us. Mm-hmm. And yet I acknowledge that there are going to be those people who have that predicament, and I'm here for you. Email me. Mm-hmm. Seriously, contact me. I want to help because we all have positive qualities.
You know, I've been trying to help a couple people find Facebook groups that speak to what they're kind of the storm that they're in right now, or something they're working on. And, you know, even something as simple as, I am good at encouraging others when they feel bad. You know,
Yes.
how do you comment to other people on social media? Do you speak up and say, I'm thinking about you, or I'm sorry you're going through that? Well, that means you're an empathetic person.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a positive quality in my book.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Kindness and compassion are some of the most beautiful qualities that humans can have.
Yeah. Something that I think is also important that you just talked about, Nora, is like as a kid, you may not have had any outside people outside of your family, and the family was not the best at pointing out your positives. So I think it's important to help kids understand, because there's a lot of kids who are going through trauma and going through sexual trauma. And so helping them understand how to identify, like the counselor at school or your teacher, or is there one teacher at school that you know you really like, and what would that particular teacher say about you? Working with adults, I find it very interesting to that they will say a ton of positive things about other people but no positive things about themselves. And so I always have them flip that around and say, well, would you tell someone else what you're telling yourself? Would you tell someone else that they suck and they're horrible? Would you tell someone else that they can't do anything and that they're useless? And 9 times out of 10, all the women will say, I would never do that. I would never say that to someone. And so getting them just to reflect on how they're speaking to themselves and how that impacts them. And what would you tell someone who may have made a mistake or who may be in a bad situation or whatever that looks like? What encouragement would you give them so that they can then learn how to cultivate that voice for themselves? I think it's also a part of that, finding and focusing on the positive qualities that they have, especially when they don't have anyone. Like you were saying, like if I don't have anyone, then what do I do?
Well, you know, for mistakes, I like to point out that we all make them. Actually, I'm pretty sure that I'm a world record holder, you know, and it's really all about forgiving yourself for your mistakes and learning from them. That's it.
Ooh,
And
forgiveness. There's a topic.
Forgiveness. And it's, you know, it's so hard for the same reason that, you know, we say horrible things to ourselves. And again, if you don't have anyone, then I encourage going online. There are so many great resources. There are groups, there are support groups, there are organizations. There's plenty of information out there to help you find your way through it if you just go look for it.
I think people
And
can
that's not,
also,
I know.
what was the last thing?
You know, and sometimes that's just like, it's not often enough, but
Yeah.
I try.
I was thinking that people could also look at, how do you treat people in your day-to-day life? Are you considerate when you're in line at a store? Are you attentive to the drivers around you on the road? Are you, you know, how do you respond to people, even strangers? You know, you can look at how you treat people, other people, as a way to kind of look around and see what your positive, helpful, empathic qualities might be.
That's definitely an option. And I'm open to more ideas.
So tell us about the superpower.
Well, besides the fact that I assure you that everyone has positive qualities, I believe that we all have a superpower. And so the trick comes in figuring out what your superpower is. And you know what? Most of us have more than one superpower. If you don't know what your superpower is, and you're a woman right now, I'm going to tell you that you have intuition. This is a superpower. And start to think of this as your superpower, so you begin to honor your intuition. But you know, we all have those things that we're good at. So find your superpowers and then focus your energy there. Often it's something that you like to do. Or it just comes naturally. You know, you're a great listener. You know, you know that you have a lot of compassion. You bake great brownies. We always like that. So it can be so many things that can be your superpower. And when you find that and you focus on that instead of what you can't do, life becomes much more joyful and you have more power.
Again, I think that superpower is like, it's something that is so natural to you that you wouldn't even sometimes think to label it that.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say it's usually an innate thing that you don't even think about.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, one of my superpowers is I read voraciously. I love to read. It's like my favorite thing to do. I can read vast amounts of literature and I can digest it down into the salient points. That's my book. I could have written Cliff Notes for a living, but I have this weird ability to do that, to absorb a whole lot of stuff and go, okay, these are the key points. Take out all the extra verbiage and this is the nuts and bolts. So that's one of my superpowers.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
a good one.
I try to use my powers for good.
Do you have one, SaDohl, that comes to mind?
I think being an empath for me is a superpower. So that space of feeling and joining and aligning empathically with others.
I think when I think of, what we're thinking in this superpower language, how might I have labeled these? And in the past few years, some of them come out of two things. One is what I really enjoy. And the second is, what do I do to soothe myself when I'm not feeling well? And so one of my superpowers is organization. I love organizing things. And when I feel bad,
that's a good one.
I will go reorganize the kitchen in a second. I pull everything out, throw things out, that. And so I feel like that's something that I'm good at, but it also sometimes stems out of, like when I was going through my divorce, the person I was living with, oh my gosh, poor thing. She'd come in, you're reorganizing the kitchen again. Yep. That's the task today.
That's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing. And driving. That was another one that, I grew up loving to drive. And that became something that I decided at some point about 10 years ago that I would spend more time on. And I started doing solo racing. But it wouldn't have occurred to me before then to capitalize and pull out something that I felt was so natural and enjoyable, to take it more steps further.
Call it a superpower.
Yeah.
And that's just it. It's probably something that you've just always been naturally good at.
Right.
Right. But we don't think to label it a superpower. So that's, as warriors, that's what I want you to do. I want us to really call these out as superpowers. And then
nurture them.
And nurture them. And use that to help you ignore the things that you're not good at. I can list the things I'm not good at besides math, tech. I'm really not good at tech. It's okay. I'll figure out enough. And so I focus on what I can do well.
Yeah. That's good. Good. And sometimes nurturing means we got to learn more things. We need to learn something. We need to talk about it, talk to other people who have the same superpower. There's a group out there somewhere talking about whatever it is you're good at. If you're good at being a Boston Terrier mom, there are other Boston Terrier parents out there.
That's right.
Exactly. That's right. Find your tribe.
Find your tribe. Absolutely. Okay, what's next?
Love this one.
Good one.
This is a good one.
Spiritualists and scholars through the ages, we've known that gratitude is a great practice for soothing yourself. And now we actually have the research. There's some research about how gratitude literally, physically changes your brain and your heart. It opens everything up. And in addition to, soothing anxiety and depression. So gratitude is such a great place to go, when you're feeling bad about yourself, to think about, what you're grateful about. When we're thinking, everything that's going on in the world, to think about, the kindness that people still show each other and how we try. So I love gratitude. I always try to end my day with gratitude, to try to think of at least 3 things that I'm grateful about, to put me in that positive mindset before I go to sleep. And appreciation. With this, what I like to do as part of my gratitude exercises is tell my friends, because, sometimes we don't hear it, tell them, how much I care about them and how great I think they are. And, you're really good about this. And I don't get to do this as much anymore, but I used to have a habit of every time when I went out, I would make a point of finding a woman or 2 to compliment. It's like, you look great today. Just to see them brighten up and feel better about themselves, to give them that positive input that we so often don't get. So these things increase your self-esteem and self-love because they increase that superpower of kindness and compassion.
Absolutely.
For me, if I start to feel a negative spiral, I have plenty of them, and we have to take ownership for changing that direction, not to beat up on ourselves for having it, but to shift the direction. And one of the things I like to do, I use my senses a lot, I talk about it a lot, but to even just look up from where you are and say, like, I appreciate the softness of that blanket over there. I'm so grateful that I have this chair to sit in. I'm so glad I have these colleagues to interact with. So taking whatever is in your absolutely immediate environment and saying, like, I put this vest on today because it was soft. Like I just wanted to feel comfortable and cozy. And that is something that I can appreciate and feel gratitude about having. So it's these teeny tiny things. It's waking up in the morning and saying, oh, these sheets feel good. I don't want to leave them, but that might take me to the negative. That might activate some anxiety if I think about getting up out of them. But if I take 60 seconds or 5 minutes, whatever you got, and just like literally feel the temperature of the sheets and the texture and that's appreciation and gratitude.
I think that's important because a lot of people kind of overlook the small things, right? So, when I tell clients, to start a gratitude journal, they're like, well, I don't really have anything that I'm grateful for. These are all the things that are going wrong. And I'm like, well, tell me something that's good. Tell me something that's gone okay. How did you get here? Where do you, give me some things like you were mentioning, Claire, that are actually okay. And when I start to kind of help them identify these things, the first thing they say, I have a roof over my head. Yeah, I got a job. Yeah, I make a good living. Yeah, and I'm like, those are the things. That's where it starts. It doesn't have to be these grand things that you have going on that you're grateful for or that you appreciate, but it's for the smallest things. And I think having gratitude for the small things is really, really, really what's important.
Do you like your socks?
Yeah, just the simplest thing.
It can grow from there. Again, to
Absolutely.
me, the momentum thing is really real for me. How do you add engines to the positive thought?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the gratitude and appreciation are a really good way to do that.
Yes. So let's roll into the last one of to challenge yourself.
Yeah.
The big one.
Well, this is so important because, again, it helps you focus on what you can do. And if you don't challenge yourself, you can easily feel that you can't do much. So even if it's, I challenge myself to go and walk for 10 minutes, and I challenge myself to drink a couple extra glasses of water, or I challenge myself to turn off the TV at night and read a little bit in a book. So it can be small things And you do want to challenge yourself with small things so that you get those wins, so that you know that you can do it. And you know what? If you don't, it's okay. Challenge yourself again. See if you can do it tomorrow. So this is really helpful in building your self-esteem and confidence in that you're achieving goals from your challenges.
I like the idea of building the self-esteem and building that confidence and finding the thing. And it doesn't always have to be something that you're good at. That's the idea, is that it may be something that you have not tried before. It may be, you know, setting a different pace, a different goal, or changing a goal or your pace. So I love that idea of
maybe you just have fun doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to be good at it. So challenge yourself. Just have fun and not worry that you're not good at it.
You know, it can be large things too, but all of the big things have teeny tiny goals that help us to reach that. You know, this may sound weird, but like even this guy in this picture sitting, you know, with this massive view here, like what did it take for him to get there? I'm sure it wasn't just like one day he was like, I'm going to grab my walking stick and walk up this mountain. I don't think it happened that way.
Right. Yeah. So the little steps matter.
It's the little steps, you know, and again, sometimes we're in a cha-cha and we slide back a little bit, but it's just, you know, important to take those steps forward again.
And if it's harder, ask a friend or us as therapists, if you have one, ask us to help break it down to the tiny steps. You know, it may not occur to you that putting on your walking shoes today is part of challenging yourself to walk, you know, your big goal might be to walk 30 minutes 3 times a week. Well, a small goal might be, I'm going to put my shoes on every day for a week. But you might not think of that. You might dismiss that as, well, that's ridiculous. Of course I should be able to do that. Well, maybe you can't. And maybe that's okay. That critic, you know, that's when we tell the critic to hush and move along. And, you know, well, you know what? I'm putting my shoes on today, and I've done that 5 days in a row. And maybe the next day you just find yourself walking out the door because you have your shoes on already. That's how some of this stuff happens.
Yeah.
Baby steps.
Baby steps. Oh, that movie just popped in my head. What was that? 1985 or something? Baby steps. Anyway. So are there other things that we want to kind of wrap this all together with? I want to read the quote at the end of the chapter, but as we're talking about these things, you know, is there anything else that comes to mind for either of you that you want to convey to people who are struggling with this?
I'll let Nora go first.
Oh, there's so much, you know, but basically it comes down to, you are worthy of your love. You are. You are a child of the universe. You are a child of God. You are here and you are worthy of loving yourself.
And we even, you know, it's that put your mask on first before you put it on someone else, so that you can be charged up, not in order to take care of other people, because we're not here that's not our main goal. We need to take care of ourselves, but a natural thing that happens out of that is we take care of other people well. And then we're in a give and receive kind of space. If other people are doing that too, we're getting fed and we're giving out, and we're getting fed and we're giving out, and it's a much better state of being.
It's a reciprocal relationship, right? It's much more reciprocal in that way.
Absolutely. So here's the quote at the end of the chapter. And there's good news. Even if you don't love yourself or have healthy self-esteem right now, You possess a natural instinct for self-preservation. This is your inner fighting spirit, your warrior self. So in the meantime, we can work with that and begin to develop confidence. It's not an all or none thing.
It's a process.
It's a process. Yeah. That was my ending point, is that it's a journey. Like this process or this journey to self-love is just that. This is a journey that you're going to go through, and a journey has different winds and turns and ups and downs and cha-chas, right? But it's the process of continuing on the journey. And then at all costs, choosing you. I always tell, clients, choose you before you're choosing other people, right? Choose yourself first.
Absolutely. So, just so you know, SaDohl and I are out here doing telehealth. We're doing video sessions. I actually had to stop taking new clients right this second, but maybe beginning middle of June, I can help some more folks. But I'm always open to having a conversation or helping people get to the next step. And I think SaDohl, you're open as well to that, right?
I am open, absolutely.
And even joining the Reset community, you're welcome to do that. And I'm going to put Nora's information in the description as well. And but I also want to invite you. So this is a two-parter. So today and over the next week, I invite you to rewatch this video if it spoke to you. And then next week, so today is, what is today? The 12th? Okay.
Yep.
Today's Tuesday, the 12th. And we're going to be meeting back a week from today, next Tuesday. And I think we decide on noon to do a live Q&A. Okay.
Yes.
So over at ATL Shrink, my Facebook page, you may have found this video there. We're going to do a live Q&A with Dr. Nora on this information. So if you have questions, if you have specifics that came up while you watched, please put those in the comments or join us. I do want to say we will be recording it. So just be, as far as, as a therapist, I'm hyper confidentiality aware. So just be conscious that we will be recording and posting it. But we welcome your questions, and we'll spend, maybe 30 minutes or so. We'll just see where the conversation goes. And at noon next Tuesday at ATL Shrink on the Facebook page. So thank you so much for joining us, Nora.
Thank you.
We really appreciate you and what you're doing.
Absolutely.
We're all on the same team here. Together
we are all on the same team.
We are.
All right. I hope everyone has a lovely day and a good week.
Ciao.
Thanks. Bye.